Hello and welcome. I'm Alex Grodnick, and this is Moving Up, a podcast about secrets to success, struggles along the way, and life in general. Today on the pod, Schultes, the CEO of LendUp, a fintech company that provides loans and credit cards to underserved communities. Pod fans, brace yourself for this one. It's a little longer, but man, is this a powerful episode. I teared up while doing it, and the story is amazing, and the inspiration is strong. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do.
All right.
Anu, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me on the podcast, Alex. You have a very interesting story as well.
Well, this podcast is all about your story. The listeners are sick and tired of probably hearing about my story. I talk about it all the time. But you're the CEO of a company called LendUp, and we'll get into to what that is and the mission. And really, I want this podcast to be of how everything got you to this place where you can be the CEO of a great big fintech company.
Sure.
So, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in India, and even within India, I grew up. Half of my schooling was in the south, Chennai, where I'm from, and half of it was in Delhi, because my dad worked for the central government.
Okay, and were your parents they worked for companies? They were entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So my dad worked for the government, so he was a lifetime government employee. He was an engineer, electrical engineer by trade. And my mom, she, early when I was very young in first grade, she was a teacher, but at some point she decided, I think soon after that, decided to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. So my mom was a homemaker, my dad was a government employee.
And so what brought you to the United States?
So, it's interesting at the time, when I was graduating college, it was 1990, and there's definitely a strong push, or the environment was such that it felt like, going to the US is going to give everyone bigger opportunities. And I definitely felt strongly that I want to come to the US for graduate education. And I can't pinpoint exactly when I decided that, but it was definitely early in my college career because I had to prepare for the GRE, and I started doing that. I took the GRE in my junior year, and I remember prepping for almost a year for it. So I know early in my college career, I decided my next step would be graduate school.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, what was that like leaving home and family and going to a faraway place?
Yeah, it's, I think sometimes it's good to be young and fearless, right? You're looking forward to the experience and not necessarily worrying about what's going to happen. My parents knew that I wanted to go to the US, and my sister came a year ahead of me. So my parents had one request for us to not be on separate continents. So she was a year ahead of me. So I knew a little bit. I had friends who had been to the US and would come back for the summer. But I really I was just excited to say, oh, it's a new country. I'm going to go get a master's degree, that it's, my career is going to take off. It's the land of opportunity. I totally bought into the American dream. And got on a plane with literally just 2 large suitcases and $750. That was the allowed amount that you could take out of the country at the time.
Right. I mean, you're right about this being young and fearless and just not putting uncertainty ahead of opportunity, and you just go and do something. I mean, at this point in your life, you can't imagine moving somewhere with $750. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know. My daughters are now, one of them is across the country, and I'd say to myself, I'm letting her do this. I can't believe I'm letting her do this. And of course, my kids are pretty sharp. They're like, hello, you moved 10,000 miles. But I tell them I moved after college. I was in my 20s.
Right.
Yeah.
So you come to America what graduate school do you go to?
I went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. It was a program. It was a master's in management science. The focus was a field called operations research. And I had full scholarship for master's. And I had to have it because, I grew up middle class. My parents couldn't afford to put me through grad school. Mm-hmm. So it was important for me to have that full tuition and a stipend.
Right. So you move to the U.S., you go to Case Western. How long is that program? 2 years?
2 years,
2 years. And what are you thinking once you're there?
So very quickly, I met the person who would be my husband. We've been married 27 years. And so I was still very focused on my career. So the two choices were consider additional graduate school, go to a PhD program. Actually, I was pretty convinced that that's what I want to do. My entire family, like my sister, her husband, my husband, they were all in PhD programs.
Oh, wow.
And definitely I felt like, okay, I should do a PhD program because for me, learning is a lifelong thing. If I was independently wealthy, I'd probably be like permanently in school. But then incidentally, I got a job offer through a campus interview for a company that was based in San Francisco. And the CEO had graduated from Case, and so he would send his exec once a year to kind of, get a few graduate students from the campus interview. So I had the offer in San Francisco, and then I had the opportunity to join my husband in the PhD program at Georgia Tech. We were both very, very broke. And the offer there were two things. One was the concept of, I actually get to make a little bit of money was really great.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as an immigrant, there aren't that many companies that make you an offer. And so felt like a unique opportunity. And third, I really connected with the exec who came to interview me. So I felt like, I can learn from him. And is this something I can explore? And I told myself, well, I'd give it a shot for a year. I can always, either defer the PhD or I can decide after a year or through that process whether I want to switch back to a PhD. So I moved to California, and my husband he had graduated a year before me from Case, and he went to Georgia. He was in Georgia Tech. Yeah.
Okay, so you're doing like a long distance as you start your new career in life, but it's the same ideology. It's like let's just go and do and move and like not be fearful.
Yeah. I definitely, in hindsight, I realized I was a little bit fearless, but I actually thought of myself as fairly timid. I know my family and my friends will laugh at it, but it was a culture shock coming to the US. And in India, when you grow up, if you're really good at something, you don't talk about it. You're respected more if you don't boast about yourself.
Yeah, it's opposite
Even
here.
at work. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Here, if you don't talk about yourself, people think you don't know what you're doing.
Right. I wish we could have some of that India mentality here.
But it took me a long time to figure that out. And so I just kind of, got the job, moved here, but I didn't realize that it was something fearless that I was doing. I was just kind of felt timid. Again, it was the opportunity. It was so exciting to be in San Francisco. This was when you could rent an apartment in Pacific Heights for $600.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it anymore. In hindsight, also, I didn't make that much money, right, compared to what we get paid now or what I pay entry-level graduates now. But it was the opportunity. The job itself was so exciting. And my husband and I felt like with one of us working, we could actually get married sooner rather than later.
Right. And so what was the job?
So today it would be called data scientist, but what it was I joined Providian, which is a credit card company, and I joined the credit department as an analyst. But my very first job was to build a scoring model. And I was able to build a model because we had access to internal customer data. I was able to build a model that beat the FICO score for Providian. Obviously, it was proprietary to Providian, so we weren't using it for others. But that was my first job. It took me a year, but then I was in that modeling role for almost 4 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So you must have liked the job.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved the company. I loved the job. I loved my boss, and I was learning a lot. Yeah.
And then so did your husband eventually come out to San Francisco?
Oh, Alex, if you want to go through my personal life, that's like a whole 2 hours. He graduated eventually. Felt like that was the other thing. That PhD feels like it takes forever.
Yeah.
He graduated and he did join me, I want to say 5 years later.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
That is a long time.
That's hard.
Yeah, it was hard. And you realize that no matter, like, I was making money, but between, living in San Francisco, which even for the, was cheaper than it is now.
Sure,
but it was still relatively expensive compared to what I was making.
Yeah.
And having a long distance relationship where we're flying to see each other. And of course, back then, you're probably young enough that you don't know this. Like phone bills were like by the minute. Like our phone bills would be like $300 a month. It would depend on how much we talked.
Yeah.
It was definitely tough, but I really, really loved my job. And at that point I was like, I'm going to see this through.
Sure. So you're there for 4 years and what happens next?
Actually, I stayed at the company for almost 8 years.
Okay,
so my
but
husband
you're in that
moved. Yeah. And then we had our first child because he and I had decided that we can't have a kid while he's still in school and we're apart, right? So We had our first child, and that definitely reprioritized a lot of things for me.
Right.
First of all, we couldn't live in the city because it was hard to. We realized that it would be hard to raise a child in a very small apartment.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved to San Jose, and that was now suddenly I had a long commute into the city, and I had an infant, and I was unprepared, I think, for what it would do to my psyche in terms of my focus on my job. I really started to question, can I succeed at work? Can I succeed at work and still be a good mom? Like, am I being a bad mom by having such a long commute,
Mm-hmm.
And it's this constant struggle. I mean, I basically, 18 months, when she was 18 months old, my husband got a job in academia in Ohio. And it's a job it's hard to actually get an academic job. It's not that easy when you're fresh out of a PhD program. So when he got that, and I had been struggling with, am I doing the right thing for my child? And I took another leap of faith. I quit my job. At the top of my game, I would say at Provident, I was a VP. I was running the front-end acquisitions program for their U.S., prime business, which were their bread and butter. And I went to my boss and said, I'm leaving. And they're like, what can we do? Like, is it money? Is it, And they even said, oh, don't quit yet. Go ahead and move. We'll figure out something long distance for you. And I actually was on the payroll for another 6 months. And really, there wasn't a role you could do at a company like Provident that was remote. And this is not today, right?
Yeah.
We're not as well connected.
Sure.
But I just took a leap of faith and said, I'm going to prioritize my child and, give my husband a shot at the career he wants. And we picked up and moved. And we went from 2 incomes living in the Bay Area to 1 income in the suburb of Cincinnati.
Yeah,
a much lower income as well.
Tech income, VP tech income versus one academic income,
yes.
but cost of living much less.
But we were able to buy a house.
Isn't that funny how that works?
4-bedroom house, brand new, like a yard, and yeah, it was like truly the American dream.
Yeah,
and I was like, I can make this trade off.
Sure. Okay, so how did his career go? How did your career? How did that period work for you?
So that was a very hard period for me. So I didn't realize that California is different. I know it sounds really naive, but I also had this, I was, still young. I think I was 30, 31, still had so much optimism. I said, oh, US has been great. I got a great education. I ended up in a great job. It was a meritocracy. I moved up so fast. In 8 years, I was VP in a large organization. And I felt like, I should be able to go find a job that I want, that I love, anywhere in the US.
Right.
And that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
My ethnicity and my gender weren't top of mind for me because it hadn't been before.
Right. I
was 2 years on a campus that had international students. And then I was 8 years in the Bay Area, like 6 of them in the city. And so I kind of was unprepared that I would have to prove myself all over again. Huh. And I was basically told in many large companies in Ohio, hey, we don't hire into management if you don't have a MBA. Or have you considered joining the IT group? And I remember coming home after these interviews or these information interviews that I'd asked for and being really dejected and telling my husband, I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, I don't know why we came here. Is this the right thing? And, in hindsight, it must have been really hard for him too, because he was trying to get tenure at a university, and that's very all-consuming.
All-consuming. Plus, he has the pressure,
small baby, and
the pressure of you leaving your job. I mean, those are not easy.
So it was a tough 4 years, and what I ended up doing is, we had another child, and when I was pregnant with her, I decided, if it's an MBA that I need, and it's an MBA that this community or the business community here wants to tell me that I can get into a management role, then it's an MBA I'll get. So I took GMAT, I think 4 days before I gave birth to my second child, because I was worried that once the baby comes out, I won't be able to take it.
Right.
So I rushed it, and I aced the exam. And I thought, with this score and with my background, I could probably go to any Ivy. But, I was in Ohio, so I told my husband I want to go to a ranked institution. And he was at the University of Cincinnati. The MBA program was good, but not ranked. And so I decided to apply to the only ranked institution that was at the time. Case would have been too far, but Ohio State was ranked, and it was 90 miles from my home. So I applied. and I got in, and I commuted for 2 years.
Wow. You did the full-time MBA.
I did the full-time MBA. Yeah. But it was worth it for me because that program, because I went in with a very specific goal of learning, I also knew that I felt in my head that I wasn't as good at finance that I should be if I want to, really move into upper level management. Somewhere along the way, late 90s, mid 90s, I had decided someday I want to be CEO. I don't know what, right? It was just a goal.
Right.
And I felt like I needed to learn about finance. So I decided, well, if I'm going back for an MBA, I'm going to do it in finance.
And the lights just turned off in this room, but there we go.
That was funny. Maybe something I said.
Yeah, the lights didn't like you talking about finance at a finance conference.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go do this for 2 years. You have the kids. You're doing the 90-minute commute or 90-mile
commute. Yeah, 2 hours each way. Yeah.
Yeah, and like, what kind of job are you thinking you're going to get like at the other side of this?
So, I think in hindsight, I'm just always an optimist. Like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get my dream job. Like, I don't know what it was. It was something around finance. It was going to put me back closer to where I was income-wise, right? I knew I had to take a pay cut for Ohio, but from a level perspective that I would get a job that's commensurate with where I was. That wasn't the case. So I did have a lot of opportunities through Ohio State. And I think the other thing was I had almost 8 to 10 years experience, and I'd been in senior management and then in a program, in full-time program, not in an exec MBA, but so
right.
There was
it's a different,
the jobs that other people would get super excited about. I would be like, but I've already done this.
Yeah.
But I still was, I do consider myself fortunate. 2 things happened. I got a job in Cincinnati, which was like a totally different, it was a branding company. And it wasn't a senior exec, but it was totally different from what I've done. They really wanted me because of my analytical background and it would keep us in Cincinnati because my husband was working there. But then I got a job at a bank called National City in Cleveland, and it was to head a product for their home equity portfolio. And it was a very large portfolio. This company was very big into mortgage. It was a $6 billion portfolio, and I was recruited to run their product. And I thought, well, this is exciting. I haven't done product before. I've kind of feel like I've mastered finance, at least academically. And then my husband, around the same time, felt like, he had tried academia and he wanted to leave academia. That should probably be our own podcast. And so he said, you've already kind of spent 4 years here trying to make it work. Let's just go back to Cleveland. As in, that's where we met.
Right.
And let's try it, and I'll find either a teaching job or I'll figure out what I want to do. And so we moved to Cleveland, and I joined National City.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, this is this is a fun. This story is so interesting. It's like, it's exactly what I want, the ups and downs. And okay, so did your husband find a job there too right away?
He did not. And so, I think part of our journey is also the 2-party problem, right? I don't know how many couples get the 2 of them both have dream jobs in the same city without much of a commute. If there are people like that, I want to meet them. So he didn't. And then National City culturally was very different for me. I came from my last job is still Providian. I know it's been 4 years, but it was still Providian. A meritocracy where you come in, you do a lot of good stuff, and you can move up, or you can, if you're feeling like you need a change, you can move laterally. National City, it was a very storied institution, $100 billion plus bank.
Right.
In 6 states, fairly rigid culture. And while I was able to learn a lot and do a good job, I really didn't feel like I belonged. I felt like it could be a lifetime career for me, but it would be slow and steady, and it would be a good life, right?
But
I'm
that's not
saying
for
that's
you.
not what I like. It wasn't fulfilling for me.
You're a go-getter. Slow and steady is not going to be the one for you.
And I thought, but then we bought the perfect dream house, and I thought, okay, I got my dream house, so I can put up with the sort of maybe a career that's middling. But the problem was he also did not get his dream job, so it's like you can't be where neither one has a fulfilling career.
One should have it,
right? At least one should have it. Ideally, we'd both have it.
You're making lots of compromises here: house, career, both careers, kids. It's like commute, and there's just a lot of things that go into this, into your spectrum.
Yes. So out of the blue, he got a job in Florida. they were looking for a PhD. It was a Department of Defense contractor. They wanted someone like him. They were like, name your price. We want to hear next week. And, he had done the whole year and a half of what's next. I'm going to do a little consulting. I'm going to do teaching here and there. And it was very upsetting to me because even though I wasn't super excited about my job, but I felt like, oh, I love this house. We just settled and we've moved so much. And, and then I have to move with kids. And I know you're going to laugh. Probably I was expecting the third child.
Yeah.
And we'd already decided we're done after 3. And I was like, I'm pregnant. How are we going to do this? I'll have to find a job and I'm pregnant. But I knew it was the right thing for him. We knew it was the right thing for him. My job wasn't my dream job. So we said, here we go again.
Right.
We're going to move to Florida. So he actually went with one of my kids who was not in school yet because my in-laws lived there. And then I followed with my, first grader. And I was like 8 months pregnant and followed to Florida.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. My story will just go on and on. Alex, I don't know. Are you sure you want to get into this?
It keeps getting better. I'm like, usually, by this point, it's like, okay, yeah, now I became this company, and I still have no idea how it gets to where it is today.
People have asked me if I'm going to write a book, and have I thought about who's going to play me? So I went to Florida. And that was also hard. It was great in many ways because the Florida weather and it just felt much closer to what I'm used to between the heat and even the little things like the plants that grow in India grow in Florida. It just, brings home
stuff
a little
that feels
bit.
like home, yeah.
Yeah. There were no banks headquartered there. And so it was basically Florida is a lot of wealth management and a lot of healthcare, right? And so my husband was really excited about his job. And I was like, I don't want to stay home. I don't want to just spend another 4 years looking for what's next. So I actually found a job at Home Shopping Network and I convinced them to hire me. It was a senior manager job, making a lot less than what I was making last at National City, which was already lower than what I used to make in California. But I convinced the recruiter, hey, get me in. My minimum is this. Get me in the door for an interview. If it doesn't work. Just getting me in the interview is not you committing to paying me that much.
Right.
So I went in for an interview. It went really well because when you've done a lot of stuff, you're not going to interview like a senior manager. You're going to tell them everything you can do. And both the hiring manager and another person who was on my interview list, who was a different department, they both wanted to hire me. And so as part of that, they couldn't change the title, but they paid me what I wanted. But I came in as a senior manager. So now I'm 3 levels removed from a VP. So that was my last role.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had a blast because I built a direct marketing program for them. Like I brought all of my experience. And my whole thing was I want to add value. Like I'm here, you're paying me. I want to make a difference. I want to come into work feeling excited. And I built a really great direct marketing program
for them. It's very simple what you want. You just want to provide value. Like you don't care about industry, location, function, title. Like you just want to do.
Right. And then I had a long-term goal of being a CEO. So my whole thing was every job I'm doing is giving me a skill or experience that's going to help me later. I didn't have a grand plan on how I'm going to get there. Right? Clearly I didn't. It was just, it was just, if I'm here, I want to, maybe fill in my experience a little bit more in a different way. And Home Shopping Network was great. It was so different from anything I had done. It was just, it expanded my horizons. I'm like, there's a whole other world outside financial services, which is just totally different. It's about brand and it's about personalities. It's about celebrities and it's about selling on TV. And I figured out how to use direct marketing to drive more sales on TV, which I thought was, in hindsight, it was brilliant. But I kind of poured my heart into it. And I stayed there for 2 years.
Wow. That's so cool. And that was owned by Barry Diller?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible business. Like when you were
there,
they
had 52 million customers.
You were there during the heyday of all this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was great. It was awesome. It was different, right? And culturally also Florida was different, but it was definitely awesome. But there was no path. Like I was not in the core business, right? If you're not in a company's core business, you're always almost dead. Not as a person, you're not a throwaway, but the business is a throwaway. Like you could always decide a core business, something you want to divest.
Right.
Every company can decide that, right? In hard times, the first things to go are the auxiliary things that are in the core business.
Yeah, you got to be close to the revenue.
Yeah. And it was a TV company, and there was no way I was going to get myself into that part of the business.
Right.
I wasn't qualified. I didn't want to. It was just a whole bunch of things. And then my husband's job went so well. They said, "Hey, you're doing such a great job. We're going to promote you." And I was like, "Oh, great! Finally, like it's all working. We're both happy." And as part of that, they really wanted him to go work on a contract in Texas, in El Paso. So he's like, "Well, we shouldn't move again." I was like, "Right." And then he said, "I'll just travel. I'll be out 100%. Like I'll come home on weekends." So now I have 3 kids, right?
Yeah.
So my kids are an infant, 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I'm working. And it's a job where I didn't see a path. And I just sat down with my husband, and he and I have always been supportive of each other. So
I mean, obviously,
it makes for a
you're
great
very,
marriage.
very supportive of each other.
And I said, if you're going to travel anywhere, why don't we just pick where I want to be?
Mhm.
And then you can travel anyway.
Right. Yeah. What do you
If
need
you're
to
only
be?
going to be home on weekends,
Yeah.
So I moved back to California with 3 kids
Uh-huh.
and all the stuff without
Right.
my husband. Like he
And
was
no job. Yeah.
no job.
Yeah.
I actually, before we moved, I called. LinkedIn was fairly new. I found my coworkers, my boss, my friends working at a very small company called Account Now in San Ramon, California. And I reached out and I came in and interviewed, and I knew everybody. They knew me. I knew the board members. It was just like coming home, right?
Yeah.
And they made me an offer, and then a friend of a friend had a furnished house that was sitting empty close to the job.
This is in Santa Monica?
San Ramon, California.
Santa Monica,
So it's outside San Francisco.
Yeah.
And again, we moved. We moved without our stuff, but with suitcases.
Uh-huh.
Me, the kids, we literally moved into this house that was furnished, that I was able to get for rent for a year through a friend.
Right.
And it was close to work. And I said, well, it's a very short commute, 5-minute commute. 3 kids.
That's a good.
And then close to the elementary school. I'm like, okay, my husband's traveling, but I can make this work.
Wow.
So that's how I got into the space I'm in now, which is focusing on products for the underserved.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 2007. And housing crash had already started in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Well, Florida was, right.
Yeah, Florida was first.
Yeah.
And I had a house I was trying to sell.
Oh, jeez.
Are you sure you want to go through the rest of this?
Your dream house that, you need to sell that, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
And you get this
we had built it. We had built it from scratch. Yeah,
wow.
I was like, I'm settling. So when we moved to Florida, I was like, we're done moving.
Yeah.
Florida's great. My in-laws are here. Family's here. Weather's great. This feels like almost like home. We can make a life here. And so we built our house. And then the housing market was crashing, and we didn't obviously pick up on it, right? Everybody knew by 2008 the market crashed, but not in 2007.
No, there was still the heyday of it. People
People
still taking out second mortgages
selling,
and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. People are still flipping houses in Florida,
I'm sure.
Yeah. So I came to Account Now. It was family, pretty much. I knew everybody. So my whole equation was, I'm changing so much. I'm coming back with kids. My husband's not going to be there every day to support me. So I need to control for some things. I need to be in a job where I don't have to prove myself as soon as I get there. I'm coming in with credibility. Mm-hmm. And so I went into that job with the knowing that they will be my support system as well. And so I think for that time, that was my optimized decision, you know? And it was the right thing I did because I discovered my passion for underserved. And I've decided since that this is the area I'm going to spend the rest of my career.
So finally you found an industry that you really care about.
Yes.
All this other home shopping and everything else. It wasn't, there's you liked the job, but it wasn't the industry that your product that you cared about. So now you got the product you care about. You're working on a team. It's close. You're living close to the office. So it's you're checking a lot of boxes now.
Yeah. And then summer of 2008, I found a lump, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
So that was, literally, these days stick in your mind. So it was July when I found the lump, and early September 5th was my first appointment. I was in treatment. I had my surgery at the end of September, and I started chemo on Halloween Day, 2008.
Wow.
And so that was a journey I was in treatment for a full year. I didn't finish till end of 2009, October 2009. But Account Now, I would say, saved me. My husband was still traveling because my insurance was through his job because I was in a startup.
Right.
And so he couldn't just quit and move home. We still had the house in Florida. It was talk about a financial crisis, health crisis, personal crisis. I'm like, am I going to make it? And I had so many regrets about moving to California. I said, I did this to us. I put us in a financial bind. I insisted on moving here. I could have stayed in Florida, it would have cost less. We could have rode out the financial crisis without having to sell the house.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, but you probably still would have had cancer. Like, you can't, we can't control for everything. And he's like, you shouldn't beat yourself up. And so I came out of it. I mean, it was probably I hit bottom. That's when you're not worried about your career. You're worried, my focus was
health. Yeah.
Not just my health, like my kids.
Your family.
My son is 3 and
really
my oldest
things,
is 10. And I'm like, what's my husband going to do with 3 kids? Like, am I going to leave him in debt, right? A house in Florida with really no other assets and leaving him with 3 young kids? Am I going to make it? And so, but Akana was great, right? So the lights went out again. It's something I'm saying. I basically decided that I have to survive. It's not an option I have. Like, I strongly felt that my kids, no one else could take care of my kids like I could. And Akana was super supportive, right? I would work. I didn't go on disability. I scheduled my chemos for either Thursday or Friday, depending on how strong the chemo was. If the chemo was strong, the doctor said take it on a Thursday because I had to come back for a follow-up on Friday. When it was weekly, then I did it Fridays. And I would leave work at 2:30. A coworker would drive me. And an exec admin would pick up my kids from school and bring them home. And then my coworker would bring me back home. And then my husband would come home from the airport around 7 o'clock. And I'd be back at work on Monday.
Wow.
And Akana was part of that group that just held me together. But I did a lot of great work, and that's also when I lost my fear at work. I'd always been fearless from, I think I can go do that. But I'd still been in the back of my head, I was still a little bit timid. Should I say this in a meeting? How will that be perceived? Is that going to hold me back? Will I not get promoted if I piss my boss off, right? Things like that. When you're going through chemo and your life is upside down and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, you kind of say, you know what? I don't care what they think. I'm just going to say what I believe is true. And if they don't like me, that's just too bad. Oh. And it was just liberating. The question is, if all of us, I think especially women, because we talk down to ourselves a lot, if you could just get that fearlessness without going through cancer, I'm telling you, the world would be a better
without
place.
hitting rock bottom, you have to. Yeah, that would be a good product to package up and deliver to them.
And so coming out of that, suddenly my career took off, Alex. It was like the craziest thing. It was not what I thought would happen, but it was the fact that I let go of my fears of failure. Am I going to be successful? I've moved around a lot. I was a VP at 30. Here I am 10 years later, bald, thinking I'm going to die. Financially, we are very, very on the brink, And I'm like, what happened to my career? Look at my friends. Like, some of them are already millionaires because Google went, public. And I have friends who are, CEOs of other companies. We are all the same graduating class. And I'm like, what's happening with my life? But coming out of it, because I kind of said, it's okay, I am where I am. I'm going to go forward in 3 things, right? I want to find a job I love. I want to stay in this industry. And every day I want to make a difference. And I want to right-size my life for my kids because I have an obligation to make sure that they get set in terms of their education and figuring out what they want.
Right.
Not that it's not about leaving them money. It's about getting them set up for success so they can find their path.
Yeah.
And so suddenly my career took off. So at Account Now, but as 4 months after I finished everything, I moved on because Blackhawk Network in Pleasanton, they're the leading provider of gift. They were starting a business for the underserved, and they recruited me. And I think 2 things. I wanted a change of place. It was heartbreaking because I was leaving my friends who literally nurtured me.
Right. They were your family.
Yeah. But then I also needed to financially be more stable.
Right. Yeah.
And Akana was still a startup. Blackhawk was a very large, profitable company. So I said, okay, it's still in the same space, and I think I can go do it. And that's when my career took off. I was able to, for the underserved, I built a business that had $1 billion in deposits within 3 years from me getting there. Wow. I think it was just the fact that I suddenly said, I know what I can do. I'm just going to go try it. And I'm not going to be timid. No one will remember me as timid, but I was always holding myself back a little bit. And so suddenly I really went into work saying, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to treat people well. I'm going to focus on results. And I built this amazing business.
Wow.
And I thought, oh my God, I can do it. I became a GM of that business. I built $1 billion business. I launched the very first T-Mobile branded product that was national. And I was flying high. I thought, wow, I finally it's almost like I even remember telling my husband, I think I've caught up for all the time I've lost. Like, had I been here, right, my trajectory would have been this way.
Mm-hmm.
I went all over,
Yeah,
but I finally am in that place. I've caught up. Like, I'm even now. Like, life is even.
You could always compare yourself to people that had their path, and you think their path is straight up. I don't even know if a straight up path exists. Maybe for the people the media makes it out to be, but everyone's path goes up and down. But it's like, it's so difficult, comparing yourselves to what other people have, and what other people in your same class, you're saying they're becoming CEOs, and that wasn't your journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't be the person you are had you not gone all these hardships and difficulties.
So now I can tell you, like, I hit my 10-year mark, October of 2018, 10-year post-cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I am grateful. That's the moment I realized I'm so grateful I went through what I did. Like, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have the exact journey I had, I live my life with gratitude, and it's propelled my success because I stopped worrying about, am I going to become a CEO? Because it was no longer important. I focused on outcomes. I focused on what I love to do. I focused on people. And suddenly I was making things happen that I didn't even know I could make happen, right? Because it came out of a place of, I'm just going to try it.
Right.
What is the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
The worst that could happen to me at work will not be worse than what I've already been through.
Right.
I would still have my kids. I would have my life. I'd be breathing. I could feel the sun, right? So you lose that, and you suddenly realize you could do so much more. If all of us could just stop worrying about things and just focus on doing the right thing, we would all change the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like this idea of chasing purpose versus chasing money. People say, oh, I want to go make a lot of money. It's like,
and then focus on purpose, but it doesn't work that way because you spend so much energy chasing money. You make sacrifices that you probably shouldn't have made. Right. So Blackhawk story was great. And then I got laid off. Because as a company, they decided they wanted to refocus on gift. Mm-hmm. And really, there wasn't a place for me. And so I thought, wow, like, I hit my peak. I got all caught up. And then by now we had sold the Florida house eventually. We bought a house in, Danville, and like things were looking great. My husband was still traveling. Uh-huh. And I was like, even then I was very optimistic. I'm like, oh, I'll find something, and then I had another health scare. I had a major surgery. So I was I was basically recovery for 3 months. And I'm like, I'm in crisis again. I have a health crisis. I don't have a job. And, but coming out of that, I decided, I know I can build a large business. I know I've now understood what I'm able to do. And so I decided I'm going to focus on either early stage startups or small to medium, so that I can control the outcomes for whatever I build. If I'm going to go build $1 billion business somewhere, I want to be able to control the outcome of it and not have someone else tell me it's not important to us anymore. So I ended up in a startup for 1.5 years. It was at the ground floor level. It was a mobile-based gifting startup. Mm-hmm. Wasn't the space I wanted, but I really wanted to. I knew I could help them out a lot. And so I stayed there till Series A. But then summer of 2017, Lend-Up called, or a recruiter called, and I thought, oh my God, this is the space I need to be in. Yeah. This is my mission.
Right.
As much as I loved the group I was in, and I loved them and they loved me, I thought, this is, destiny calling. I know it sounds very cliche, and I was already a CEO at a startup. To me, I felt like that's the last step before you want to be a CEO, because you want to learn how to run a business. Mm. But then, through interviews, Lend-Up offered me a GM role to run the loans business. And they said, it's not a C-level. It's not, of the 2 businesses we have, is the, credit cards is our main focus, but we need somebody strong like you to come run this. And I thought, this is the space I want to be in. I want to solve for this loans. I've been thinking about creating a loans problem, a loans product for the underserved since 2009. Like, I never got to it. Right. And so I took another leap of faith. I said, okay, I will take the job. I walked away from the startup, which I was like a ground floor, person. Yeah. And said, I'm just going to go figure this out at Lend-Up. And so I joined Lend-Up 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago. Less than 2.5, right? 2019. So I joined August 2017.
Okay. And they bring you in to
run the loans business.
The loans business.
I was reporting to the COO. Uh-huh. And then end of 2018, so I'd just been there a year and a few months. We went through this market forces. We ended up selling the card business to a new group of investors who created a new company. And the outgoing CEO really believed in what I had done and kind of said, "Hey, I think she's the right person." And that's how I got the job.
Wow. Pretty fast. I mean, like they say, you're the GM of the non-core, the less core business, and then they say, okay, well, now you're going to become the CEO of the entire thing in 2 years.
Yeah, but it's not 2 years, right? I've been working for 27. So that's the thing. People kind of sometimes people say, oh, like it's happened so fast. It's like people who become, I've heard this from artists who became overnight celebrities, but they've been on the grind for 10, 12 years.
Yeah, John Lennon said it took us a lifetime to become an overnight success.
Right. That's exactly. So it's not that it took so fast, but I'll tell you, and I haven't shared this publicly, but the day they told me that I'm going to be CEO, it was, I don't know if it was to the day, but it was the week that was my 10-year anniversary since cancer. And I was like, the universe is just laughing at me. Right? It's just like this weird thing where you're like, really? And when the CEO and my boss CEO sat me down and said this to me, I just sat there. I think I was a little bit of disbelief because I was like, in my head, I was still processing my 10-year anniversary. My focus was on how far I've come and I knew there was a possibility this could happen, that we would be splitting the company, but really you don't think it's really going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really saying, oh, am I going to find out today? I was more focused on, oh my God, 10 years. I made it. I am a survivor. I survived. I'm thriving. So that's where my head was.
You're a survivor and your goal is attained. You're a CEO.
Yeah.
Of a big company.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a story.
I know. I look back and I tell people, I have an interesting story, but I think there's many people like me out there who just don't get to tell their story.
I'm sure they don't get to tell their story. Yeah, that's. I mean, we're all very fortunate to be able to have this opportunity. But I'm so happy that you are able to share your story so that people can hear about just how incredible it is and the fearlessness that you've gone and just going through it. It's so inspiring.
Thank you, Alex. And what it's given me is just the other thing I hear sometimes is that you're so humble. And I tell them I'm so humble because, and first of all, I don't think of it as being humble. I think we should all just live with gratitude. It's because I also know that, you can get something and it can be gone. What you have to focus on is the now and do the right thing and give back to the community, give back to the shareholders, give back to your employees. I built $1 billion business at my last company, right? And it was really gone. The business stayed, but the opportunity for me was gone. So it kind of grounded me again, right, post-cancer, that you always want to do the right thing. And there could be another dip and it's okay because there's another up after
and
that.
You have 100% confidence in yourself. Like no one but you.
Right. Yeah. I know I can do it. And whatever challenges might come my way, because I'm sure there'll be more, because all of our lives have ups and downs.
If you've had this many challenges, there's definitely going to be more challenges. Sorry, Anu, but there's going to be more challenges. But it's it's not going to be a problem for you. You'll cover it just like you have everything else.
And I focus on my kids, and and I'm very sensitive to what people go through in their life. Mm-hmm. And so, as a company, I like to build a culture where we focus on the employee, their mental and physical health, and provide an environment they love to come to work. And so those are all the things I think about. It's shaped who I am as a person, but who I am as a leader also.
Right. So what do you think for your children? You told me you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like they're going to have the kind of ups and downs and swings that you had in your life. Like it seems like they're starting off from a better position, obviously, and they're going to great schools. And so what kind of advice do you tell them? So,
some of the things I've actually fully believed in that helped me is the focus on education, right? So my kids are definitely driven. They're focused on education. They're very, of course, in the US, even to get into a good college, you want to have extracurricular and all that. So they have their interests, but I think watching me, especially my daughters, because they were old enough to understand everything I went through, like they were 6 and 10 when the journey started, it shaped their interest as well. My older one, she's pursuing, bioengineering and computer science and wants to be involved in the medical field. So it kind of shaped her, Right. And my younger one, the year that I was going through treatment, we bought her first guitar. And she's really into music and she's pursuing sound engineering. And so it's a music and engineering combination. So she's ecstatic about it. And then my son is in high school, so we'll figure out, he's really into math. We'll see what he does. So my advice to them is that follow what your heart says, follow your dream. And it's okay. Every now and then your dream will shift, and it's okay. You don't have to tie yourself to whatever you thought in the beginning.
Right.
And also work hard, be kind. It sounds so cliche, but this is what gets people through life, right? Work hard, be kind, and follow your dreams.
Wow. Well, Anu, that's just like the best way to end this podcast. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to give you a hug now. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I hope that, people who listen to it, maybe some part of it will help them get through the day, or maybe they have a challenge. That's why I've decided to share my story, because someone is going to listen to it who's going through something.
Yeah.
And they say, you know what? It's okay. I can do it too. So
well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening today. If you like moving up, the best way you can support us is by telling your friends, helping us grow, and leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks.